Really like those. So, my name's Sarah Rector. I'm a marriage family therapist, and one of my specialties is dealing with reproductive issues. And I have a lot of women in my caseload that have come in that have been dealing with pregnancy loss, and some of them reoccurring pregnancy loss. And it is such a heartbreaking experience to lose a baby, especially when someone has gone through infertility. It's really pretty devastating. So sometimes people come in and the miscarriage is not the presenting problem. They are wanting to get support for infertility and going through the infertility treatments. So it's a secondary issue. And then sometimes it is a presenting problem. So there's two different ways that we go about dealing with that. And so when the woman comes in and it's secondary, when I take a history and I find out that she has experienced a miscarriage or recurrent miscarriage, then it's really important for us to hear what the story is and for her to tell the story of what has happened with the miscarriage. And a lot of times, what I find is when people haven't dealt with the miscarriage, when the woman hasn't or the couple hasn't, that it really creates a lot of stress and anxiety on the current treatment cycle, and it definitely can be a block to further treatment. So, talking about it and acknowledging the loss is very, very important. So, the first aspect of when someone comes in and they're going through a treatment cycle, I would gather history about the loss, what happened, and the particulars of that, and then we would talk about how this cycle would be different or is going to be different because usually um, sometimes it's unknown why there was a miscarriage, uh, and so we talk about what the different treatment plan is going to be this time and how this cycle is different. And then if the woman goes on to get pregnant, then we discuss her milestones because every pregnancy has milestones. There's the general milestones for everybody, which is your 2 month mark, your 8 week mark, and then I believe it's 26 weeks when the fetus is viable outside the uterus. But for a woman that has experienced miscarriage, she also has milestones of when her miscarriage or miscarriages has occurred. So those are going to be really critical times for her to be aware of. And that's a really important piece because a lot of times people are unconscious. They're not aware consciously of these particular times and these particular dates. And then when those things happen, when those dates roll around, it can really broadside the woman, and she can have a meltdown basically because it's unexpected. So we explore that and we deal with that and we come up with a treatment plan, some coping mechanisms, what she can do, and when a woman comes in and the presenting problem is dealing with the pregnancy loss, then there are several things that I recommend that she do. And the first step really is, usually with most pregnancies, there are artifacts, so to speak. There are ultrasounds. There are sometimes people are given gifts. Sometimes people purchase things, little stuffed animals or clothing. I had one woman who had a whole room of furniture, so that was a little bit more challenging. But we talk about those items that represent that particular pregnancy, and it's really important that those items are gathered together and some sort of container is created for them. Because a lot of times, what I hear is these things are scattered about on a counter in a drawer, and so what happens is that that these are items that can be kind of happened upon and then very triggering as far as reminders of the loss. So, um, the first thing that I suggest is those items are gathered up and put into a container. Sometimes women make containers or decorate containers, or they have something special. So, we talk about that. And so they're put in a special container and then put in a special place that's really acknowledging and honoring of that particular pregnancy. Um, And then the other thing that the next step would be to write a letter to the baby or the babies. Again, like I said, some women have had many miscarriages, unfortunately. So sometimes what's decided is a letter will be written to a couple of the babies. And so that's something that has been really healing and helpful for my clients. And I really follow their lead. It's really important that that you think about what would be most beneficial to you, what feels right. Uh, I've had clients that said they didn't feel comfortable writing a letter. They decided that they wanted to do a recording of their voice as they spoke to this unborn child. And also, the other piece is that sometimes uh, women want to include their husbands in this process. Um, so they might suggest to their husband that they also write a letter. Um, or sometimes they don't. Sometimes they want to have their own grief process and then they share it later. So there's a lot of different options as far as how to deal with the grief and loss. So the letter is the next part, and then creating some sort of ceremony is really really helpful. Some sort of acknowledgement. That's really important because a lot of times in our society, people say the darndest things to other folks, going infertility. The thing I personally went through infertility, and the thing that is challenging is when I've hear over and over with my clients is, "Oh, relax, go on vacation," and these are things that are well intentioned, but really aren't very helpful and sometimes are very painful. And with pregnancy loss, people have these scripts that they whip out again and again. They're very, very well intended. And they say, well, it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't part of God's plan, or you'll go and you'll have another, it wasn't a viable pregnancy, whatever they say. And these things are not really supportive or helpful in most cases. So really the key is that acknowledgement of the loss, because it was a loss. And actually in other cultures, I think the Asian culture, they call pregnancy loss, they call these babies water babies. And I think that's a beautiful terminology that has that um, can be very healing to consider that. So then going into the ceremony stage, then a ceremony is created, and again, the my usually I'm seeing the woman that's had the miscarriage, so she gets to decide if it's going to be something she does on her own, or she includes her husband, her partner, um, and so she designates that. And then sometimes people have even included in other family members, other children, parents. So that's really their particular choice. And so then a ceremony is designed, and we had a beautiful ceremony actually in one of my uh, infertility groups that I led, where we actually brought in balloons that represented losses, and we went outside to a mountaintop and we let them go. So that's something that you can do, and it was so beautiful. So there's a lot of options, a lot of ways to be creative, to do what fits. People incorporate in their religious beliefs. And then the last part is some sort of touchstone or representation of the pregnancy or pregnancies. So I've had people that have bought statues for their garden or planted trees. I had another woman who had a recurrent miscarriage, and she actually purchased some jewelry. She lost three babies, so she purchased earrings and a necklace. And so these are things that can be really helpful as far as acknowledging the existence of these babies and acknowledging the loss, so that then the woman or the couple can move on and go through another treatment cycle or do whatever they are feeling that they need to do to build their family. Um, so now what I'd like to do, if you want more information, I do have this information on, I have a CD or an MP3 file.